Thanks for joining us. Now, the body of the late former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan is expected to arrive in Ghana later today for his state burial this week. The body will be accompanied by the widow, children, and some UN officials. Nancy Emefa Dwadosi was at the Accra International Conference Center for a dress rehearsal.
This is just a dress rehearsal or a simulation ahead of the main event. We know that the remains of the former UN General Secretary is expected to be in the country around 4 p.m. And so today what has been going on is the fact that people or the military, armed forces, all the stakeholders are here to dress up or to have some rehearsals ahead of this. So that is what has been happening here at the conference center. You see the armed men already marching. Lots of people are gathered here to ensure that this 3-day burial would be befitting. But let's try and enter and find out how preparations is ongoing so far. So you see lots of these people standing here. The armor car is already passing by. This should tell you that the armed men or the military personnel are already ready to put together a very beautiful and a befitting funeral for our departed soul. So let's enter. I'm sure that we'll see quite a number of things that will show how prepared we are for this. And so this is the entrance of the conference center. Now what you see here is the Carlsfeld, and this is where the casket of the late UN General Secretary would be placed ahead of the funeral. So if tomorrow is going to be the filing past of the body, people, the general public, are being called to come and walk past this. So this is where the casket of Mr. Kofi Annan would be placed tomorrow, and then on Wednesday. Before Thursday, we're going to have the burial service. So this is what this place looks like. But then let's enter the main auditorium, because that is where the burial service actually is going to be taking place. Earlier when we came here, we entered, we saw the commander, instructing, no, pass here, don't do this, this is what you're supposed to do, commanding and instructing them what to do and what not to do. So if you can briefly see, I'm sure that's a second batch of people who are supposed to undertake some activities here, probably the ushers being guided or being coached on what to do exactly on the day. So from tomorrow, it is going to be the filing past by the general public. On Wednesday, going to be a filing past by the ministers of state, by MPs, members of parliament, politicians, recognized groups. So this is how inside is going to be looking like on that particular day. But then on Thursday is actually going to be the burial service of the late Mr. Kofi Annan. So basically, this is how the auditorium looks like, all prepared and all ready to host our departed Mr. Kofi Annan.
Information Minister Designate Kojo Opon Nkrumah gave details of the funeral arrangements for the former UN Secretary General.
The Kofi Annan Funeral Committee, upon consultation with the family of the late UN Secretary General, announces the following activities for his final funeral and interment rites. Monday, September 10, 2018, arrival of Mr. Annan's remains at the Accra International Airport at 4 p.m. The remains will be accompanied by his widow, children, and some United Nations officials. The remains will be received with a brief ceremony led by the Ghana Armed Forces and the President of the Republic. The remains will then be moved to the Accra International Conference Center from the airport. Tuesday, September 11, 2018, there will be filing past and paying of last respects by members of the general public at the Accra International Conference Center. This will be between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. and we encourage the general public to come pay their last respects to this illustrious son of Ghana. Wednesday, September 12, 2018, there will be filing past and paying of last respects by dignitaries, including recognized groups, chiefs, members of parliament, and ministers of state. A detail of the time slots for each of these groups will subsequently be made available. Thursday, September 13, is the burial service and final interment. The service commences at 9 a.m. at the Accra International Conference Center. It will be attended by United Nations officials, several heads of state, diplomatic delegations, and the Ghanaian general public. It will be followed by a private burial at midday at the new military cemetery with full military honors and a 17-gun salute. Mr. Anand's personal testament requested for a simple, solemn, final set of activities with no frills. And the state, while we wish to give him a befitting burial, will accommodate his wishes as well.
May his soul rest in perfect peace. Now, President Akufo-Addo is asking the Ghana Bar Association and the judiciary to contribute to eradicating the menace of indiscipline in the country. He says lawyers have a major role to play in curbing the menace. According to him, the fundamental issues have to do with a malfunction of the law. He says the devastation on our land, recklessness on the road, among others, points to the fact that laws are not properly enforced in the country. He has therefore tasked the bar to help in dealing with the menace. Maxwell Kudeko is there for Joy News and joins us via phone. Maxwell, what more has the president said?
The president is certainly worried about the trend of indiscipline in the country, and he feels that the crux of the issue has to do with the malfunctioning of the law. He made references to the recent in the banking sector and all issues that have to do with the devastation on the environment, the fact that people cross the red light, and other indiscipline on the road. And he believed that it's as a result of a malfunction of the law. So the Ghana Bar Association, for that matter, the legal profession, is one of the bodies that is in the position to help other stakeholders enforce the law. So he's charging them to contribute in ending the menace of indiscipline in the country. The president mentioned that technology today is very key in the delivery of Ghana's or a prosperous economy. So he mentioned that his administration, through the Chief Justice and the Judicial Service, have introduced series of interventions that aims at enhancing the justice delivery system. He made references to series of projects that have been launched already that aims at facilitating transparency and, for that matter, eliminating corruption in the judicial service for a better Ghana.
Now, speaking of these projects, Maxwell, the judiciary will soon roll out what is being described as the e-Justice project. The project, according to the Chief Justice, His Lordship Julius Ansah, is aimed at inculcating technology in the justice delivery system and improve service delivery in the court. E-Justice is supposed to allow electronic filing of cases, online payments of fines and fees, among others. Now, this project will be piloted in some courts in Accra, and it will later be extended to other regions. So, Maxwell, what else has His Lordship Julius Ansah said, especially in terms of what has necessitated this move?
Well, he is also contributing to the fact that the judicial service, and for that matter, the judiciary need to swiftly move to modern trend of adjudication, or for that matter, justice delivery. So he says that the project aims at facilitating, or if you like, making the justice delivery system work efficiently. He said that it will also help to reduce the incidence of perceived corruption in the judicial service, in a sense that everybody who is hooked onto the system is able to trace cases, or for that matter, trace development or of any cases under the judicial service. He hopes that the project, when fully executed, will enhance the image of the judiciary and make justice delivery system work effectively.
Now, Attorney General Gloria Kufu said, even though some Ghanaians are slow in adopting technology, it will be prudent for the judiciary to shift to a modern trend of technology in the justice delivery system. And what more did she say, Maxwell?
Well, she is also of the view that, yes, indeed, as a Ghanaian people, she used herself as an example that some people call themselves BBC, born before computers. So sometimes it's very difficult for them to swiftly move to modern trends of doing things. But she also believes that it is imperative on everybody, especially the judiciary, to change their mindset and then also move swiftly to the intervention being introduced by government. He says that there is one other project called the e-case register, which aims at digitizing the judicial system. He referred to it as a paperless system. That is a new cliche in Ghana, that the judiciary is also going to go to the paperless system. But she was to add that technology also has its own effect, where people are able to hack into systems and then tamper with documents and data and what have you. So he charged the Ghana Bar Association, he charged all players in the judicial system to be mindful of the incidents of hacking or other effects of technology. So she also believed that if government fully roll out all the intervention aimed at making justice delivery very swift and efficient, it will also help in the justice delivery system.
Thank you, Maxwell Kudeko, for joining us. Now, a former second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Ken Dwasa, is urging NDC flag bearer aspirant John Dramani Mahama to back out of the race. Mr. Dwasa, who is a leading member of the party, says the former president will better serve the party's bid to win the 2020 polls as an advisor to other candidates rather than contesting. A former Minister of State in the Jerry Rawlings government, Kojo Yanka, last week also made a similar call on the former president. Now, speaking exclusively to Joy News, the former legislator said the opposition party stands a better chance at electoral victory in at least 2024 if it has a new face in 2020.
You see, there's let me call it a conventional wisdom that when you are at war and you provide your best arsenals and you have the opportunity of fighting that war and you lose the war, conventional wisdom requires that you retreat, go and serve as an expert general, advise the younger ones to go ahead. You don't show your face again. You see, his coming back would be like after having lost the war, I want to now face a bigger battle. That doesn't. Even in our traditional Ghanaian context, if a chief has lost his stool as a result of some dispute or not, and he attempts to stage a comeback, if he's not careful, his subjects will remove his sandals and slap him in the face. It has started. Now, you remember the sort of comment that Spiogabra made about him. You see, you don't come back and contest with your subordinates, individuals that you had signed the appointment letter and appointed them ministers. Now they are rubbing shoulders with you. You see? So if at the end of the day, any of those people beat you at the polls, wouldn't that be too much of a humiliation? This is all that Kojo Yanka has been, arguing. But our young friends who are backing my good friend John Mahama do not just see this. They go on the rampage calling anybody who comments a little against the bid of John Mahama for a second term. They go about, chastising and even insulting those persons. Meanwhile, I have said this somewhere, that this party takes its root as far back as 1992, at a time when, excuse me to say, some of them were young boys. They have no history that they have witnessed of the party. Now, during our...
And Mr. Dwasa has also backed NDC General Secretary Johnson Esedun Ketia to be successful in his bid to be retained. He believes the time is not ripe for Deputy General Secretary Koku Anyidoho to unseat him.
Both candidates are okay. The other guy, Koku Anyidoho, is still young. Certainly, General Mosquito is more experienced. He has fought from opposition into government and remained in government until we lost power. The defeat of the NDC cannot be ascribable to the poor performance of General Mosquito, because I followed up his performance and how he managed the secretariat. My plea is to my young good friend that he still has a long period to grow, and that I am confident that after this 4 years of an additional tenure for General Mosquito, he would have been more than ripe to assume the position that he is aspiring for now. So he should allow General Mosquito to go probably uncontested, so that we can continue from what we have gone through and not split hair on who becomes the head of the secretariat or whatever.
Away from politics, 41% of Ghanaians have psychological distress, while 1,500 people die every year through suicide. Speaking on the AM show with Mamafi Osuapwaje, Chief Executive Officer of the Mental Health Authority, Dr. Kwesi disclosed that women attempt suicide more than men. He advised stakeholders to set up counseling facilities in all health institutions. Dr. Osei also stressed the need to decriminalize suicide.
There is real distress in the society, real distress. And I relate that also to some work that was done by some researchers from University of Ghana and Yale. And they found that 41% of Ghanaians have one form of psychological distress or the other, meaning issues bothering their mind that they can't find a way out, distress. Of the 41%, 19% of them were moderate to severe, enough for you to call it mental illness. Now 41%, almost half of the population. That means there is a lot of stress and distress in the society, and a lot is from socio-economic issues. And I must say that this one is the governments over the years that have the responsibility to relieve that socio-economic distress. 1,500 persons die every year through suicide.
1,500?
1,500. Last year, you may remember there was a surge of suicide. Within a 3-month period, we had 20 people dying. And then we opened our phone lines, we used our phone lines as a helpline, and you were getting about 200 calls a day. Of people who were contemplating, planning, attempting, and felt that I need to get some help. And they called 200 a day. Today, I still get calls, midnight calls.
Wow.
The rate has gone down, but we still get calls. So it's really, really a serious situation. What is pathetic about it is the fact that as a nation, we don't even recognize that it's a problem, it's an issue. So we seem not to be tackling it.
Why do people want to die?
In the last 6 weeks, I decided to take some statistics out of that. And we got about 20 people in the last 6 weeks, 20 people who were on the verge of committing suicide. Most of them were, about 12 of them were women, females, I would say, and 8 males. Interestingly, more females attempt suicide than males, but more males complete suicide than females. In other words, for every 5 cases of suicide that you hear of completed, 4 will be men.
Now, Head of Policy Engagement and Advocacy at the Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana, Dr. Kojo Asante says a new teacher licensure process will reduce the rate of sexual abuse in schools. He believes licensing teachers create accountability mechanisms to keep them in check. Research shows that 1 out of every 2 victims of sexual abuse are abused in school. Dr. Asante believes this number can reduce with adequate government policy.
We cannot really just be focused on building roads and this and that. You know, this goes to the soul of any nation, to the morality of any nation. And it has to be a matter that is discussed at cabinet. level to make sure that, this is kept as quickly as possible. And it wouldn't require huge amounts of money to do this. So it's really about priorities and the kind of nation that we want to build. So for me, that's why I mentioned that I think by now I would have expected the president or cabinet to be discussing this. GES might be looking at it, or Ministry of Education, but it's not enough. This has to be elevated to a much higher priority and people tasked with specific things to do. For me, a lot of these, so-called pedophiles are really just opportunists. There are no accountability systems in place. And the sanctions regime, particularly from GES, is terrible. When, people just get transferred in these kinds of matters, things are handled outside of the criminal justice system and so on. So it creates a certain culture. There's really no real threat to a person's liberty or even the economic status. And that's why, for me, I support this teaching licensing system, because this is the kind of thing that takes away your license. Apart from whether you go to jail or any other penalties, there has to be real consequences for basically, snuffing the life out of a little child.
Now, in less than 24 hours, government is expected to begin the single and double track system for senior high schools across the country. Ahead of the implementation, we have been visiting some schools in Accra. Already, 423,000 students have been placed. More students are expected to be added to this number on the self-placement system. According to Dr. Educhum, most schools have also received foodstuffs and some funds as part of preparation towards this new system.
If you're a parent and your child doesn't have green or gold on the acceptance letters, it means their school is single track, and therefore you should be prepared to really get your children to school. At this time, I would say that a number of people have done their self-placement. As of yesterday, we had 27,000 people who have done their self-placement out of 67. I know on average every day is 10,000, so I know today it may even jump, and parents are going to find schools for their children. But we have 423,000 students who have already been placed. Okay. Yeah, so those ones, they don't have to worry about. It's just a question of going to print. I know initially there were challenges, and thank God things are now moving fast. And I believe that people will have the opportunity. If you have purchased a scratch card or short code and there were challenges, if you have used it for 2 or 3, we've done it in such a way that now it's unlimited. So you can go back and use the same code and check and make sure your child goes to school this week.
How about the school? What kind of support have we already started disbursing funds to them to begin the operations?
In preparations to do just that. But you see, the interesting thing is that the pressure on them last year is different from this year. Because this year...
Double pressure, or?
No, less than that, half pressure. Because half of the students are going. Unlike last year, where they got all the students there at the same time. So a school that had 1,000 last year, maybe having 1,500, but only 750 are showing up in school. So in fact, there's less pressure on them at the opening this year around than last year, because half of the students are showing up. The good news is that since the last 2 weeks, schools have received all their foodstuffs. Food has gone. Everything they need to start cooking is there. But we're also making preparations to do what we call advanced support.
Saying all schools?
Of course. Because if it's a day school, that is a vendor that cooks for them. But if it's a boarding school, every school should have all their food allocations by this time, so they will be able to cook. However, we're also going to do the 20% advance apportionment, and we are working on it right now, so that will be going to the schools within a very short period of time. But food is there. Children can eat, so they can breathe.
Beyond the food, what else do they need that government is working on to send to them within?
What we do is that there are some other fee items like examination fee and all those things that we disperse to schools. Those ones go to the schools directly.
Now, still on the subject, our reporters in other parts of the country report of long queues of parents and their children in various schools as they go through registration. We move to other stories. Now, she started school as a teenager. The shame of being in class with others much younger than her made it difficult for her to stay in school. She dropped out, married, and started having children. Her dream of becoming a medical doctor therefore never materialized. For her, life would have been better if she had got it right from the very start. This is the reason Janet Deborah, a mother of 4, is ensuring her children don't miss out on right age enrollment. There's more in the following excerpt of our latest Hotline documentary, The Launchpad, produced by MFA Etiama Eli.
Janet believes the only way to prevent history from repeating itself is giving her children the early formal education. Matilda and Masawa are her twin daughters, the youngest of her 4 children. Matilda and Masawa are 7 years old. They are now in KG2. The education was disrupted after their father died. Ideally, the twins should have been in class 2 at this stage. But Janet is determined to see the children in school despite the late start.
They started school late because I didn't have money. They should have been in class 2 or 3 by now. But now they are in KG2.
The man likes eating what? Fufu.
Janet says since her twins started school, they have changed. They love to go to school.
They have changed since they started school. They no longer play around as they used to. They are very studious lately. When they were not in school, all they did was to play. But these days, you would see them with their books anytime they are back from school.
Felix likes fufu, and Felix is from what? Fufu. What sound do you hear more in the story? Again? This is the sound, all of you. Again. And the action is like this. All of you. Angela. Again. Pump the tire. Again. Very good.
Now, this piece is aimed at promoting right age enrollment as part of Joy News' Enroll Me Now campaign. Expect more in later bulletins. But it's now time for business. Sandra Esenamapenu is standing by.